Today I want to talk about layers on your roof. It's something we get asked a lot, something we see a lot. Good day, Chicago. I'm Jim from Anchor Point Roofing. Welcome back to our channel where we talk about all things roof and roof related in the city of Chicago. Today I want to talk about layers on your roof. It's something we get asked a lot, something we see a lot. I want to tell you a little bit about what the code says and when you should or shouldn't install another layer on your roof. We call it a roof recover. I like the term layover, but there's lots of different terms that roofers in the city will use. It means installing an additional roof covering over a prepared existing roof covering without removing the existing roof covering. So we get asked a lot, we've got one layer on there, it looks kind of old. Can we just leave that and put another layer? Let's talk about my thoughts and what's allowed. So here we're going to talk about shingle roofs for a second. You can see here, this one looks like about 3 layers. You can see the old wood here, probably 3 layers over 30, 40 years. Look at this one. This one's massive. I don't know, this one has probably like 6 layers on it. When you have this many layers, you're starting to maybe affect the structure of it, and this is why there's codes and things laid out so things don't happen and roofs don't collapse. Here's one we did just a few weeks ago in a Ukrainian village. If you look closely, it's got the layers on it. All we could see from the top was shingles, but as you dig in closer and closer, this has cedar shake shingles from probably 100 years ago. After the Chicago fire, they were outlawed in certain parts of the city because I think that contributed to the fire. But over in a Ukrainian village, they were still allowed. But anyway, this is probably an easy 100 years old. This is one a tear off we did. You can see it's got rolled roofing and then it ultimately had shingles on it. Here's a flat roof. So this flat roof, I'm going to show you on the next slide, had so many layers on it, it actually sagged the roof by 4.5 inches. We had to remove all the plywood, build it back up because roofers just kept putting layers on it. Here it is. This is the condenser pad for the HVAC condenser, and you're almost at 11 inches of roofing here. Again, like I tell my guys in the field, I say, muy fácil. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It took us a long time. This was my buddy Pete in Lincoln Park, right on Racine Avenue. We did this 2 years ago, and I mean, it was massive. It was so thick and crazy. It took a lot of tear off, and then we had to reframe a big part of the roof. Anyway, a layover is not allowed by the city or by code when there's 2 or more layers existing. So if you have a single layer on there, you can think about a layover. You can do a second layer on there. If it's got 2 layers, you're out already. There are some exceptions we'll talk about, but if the first layer is slate or tile, you still can't have a second layer on it. I looked at one this week on the south side, massive, probably 6,000 square foot house, beautiful. You walk up, it looks like shingles, and then as you dig into it to see what's under there, there was an entire layer of slate on it, rolled roofing. I don't actually know how they got the shingles fastened, but if the existing roof has slate or tile, even 1 layer, you're out. This pertains a little bit more to a flat roof. If the roof is wet or requires more than 25% of replacement, the city wants you to go ahead and replace it and tear it all off. There are a few exceptions. So I don't know when this would actually be, if it was a really high roof, maybe really cumbersome setup. You can talk to an engineer or a licensed architect. So if there are 2 or more layers existing, you must submit a structural report from a licensed architect or an engineer showing the structure can support the extra load. So basically the rule is if it has 2 or more layers, you need to tear it off. If not, you're going to hire a structural engineer or an architect to tear that off. So as homeowners, we need to just think it's got 2 layers on it, you pretty much need to get rid of it. I can't necessarily think of a time where you would call in that structural engineer or that architect to do it, but I'm sure there's some occasions and you can get it approved. Here's a layover we did. This was near Waveland and Western. We did that a couple years ago. One thing we like to see, this is a modified bitumen. This was the before picture. So it's nice and smooth. It's laid down really nice. Again, it's a single layer. You're not seeing tons of waves and humps, There wasn't any soft spots on the roof where we've got rotted plywood or things like that. So this was a great candidate for a layover, I call it. Here we are, we've put new modified bitumen over the top. Here we're doing the wall flashings, but you can see the old part where it was aluminum coated here. So we're just laying that second layer right over the top of it. Here we are, the guys are just aluminum coating it. I thought it was a cool, kind of a cool drone shot. We got it all in. We put the aluminum coating on it to seal it up. Here's the finished product. It's still really darn smooth, flat, looks like you could eat off of it. Looks like an anchor point roof to me. Here was one we did in Ukrainian Village. This wasn't the shingle roof, obviously. Again, this was on Wood Street. The membrane was pretty much in great shape. You can see it's nice and smooth for the most part, needing to be replaced. When we do a layover, we do take the wall flashings down. We take those off completely and we leave the main flat membrane. And what we've done here is we've put a fiberboard on it. There's no R value in this. It comes the sheet's 4x8 like a piece of plywood, and it's a 1/2 inch thick. And the reason we use this is we really just wanted to smooth it out. At Anchor Point, we love that the roof to be functional, of course, shed water, but there's something that we all have here, like a slight bit of an ego. We want it to look beautiful also when it's done. I know your roof doesn't have to look perfect, but we like a beautiful roof as well. Here's the finished product. So the layover on Wood Street, we put a little Lucas around the penetrations. I think it dresses it up, plus it seals the penetrations up real nice. It's rare that we follow through and we do a layover. In fact, I've only done one house on a shingled roof, a pitched roof, where we actually did a layover. I know I've lost a lot of jobs because of that, but we don't want to wreck the codes. And then sometimes it's just not a good practice to put a layover on. On a flat roof especially, if you tear it all off, then you're able to see the substrate or the plywood that's holding it together, visually inspect all of it and make sure it's solid. You obviously don't want to put another layer over something that's wet or there's plywood that's damaged under there. I know that's common sense, but again, increased weight, we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, can add stress, especially on older homes. In some older homes like this, pitched roof, we'll see literally 2x4 rafters that are 24 inch on center. As you pile layers on there, the ridge will start sagging. We've seen some pretty severe sags, and the same on a flat roof. Imagine a flat roof of 6 layers, and then you get 2 feet of Chicago snow. It could be dangerous. Another thing, heat buildup on the shingle roof. So when you have multiple layers on an asphalt roof, a pitched roof, it oxidizes the shingles much faster. These shingles aren't allowed to breathe. They're not allowed to get that airflow around them, and it will oxidize your new layer a little bit faster. So we just don't do many layovers because we want to see what's going on. I've gone to so many roofs, especially flat roofs, where we can clearly see it's got a couple layers, and the homeowner says, well, the last 3 roofers said we're just going to put another layer on it. We don't get those kind of jobs because we want to go by code and we want to make sure it's done right. Sometimes it works, like we've seen layers where it's 4 or 5, but that's not how we want to do it. If there's 2 layers, we're not going to throw our hat in the ring for a layover. Here we go again. We touched on this, I think, a little bit. The manufacturer of shingles, they don't want you installing, they don't want to stand behind it when you're doing multiple layers. In some instances, if it's done right, you can put a second layer and they'll stand behind it. But there's a lot of wording on the packages when you buy a bundle of shingles that says they want it attached to a solid substrate, a solid structure. So you could potentially void the manufacturer warranty, and you are just kicking the can down the road. I mean, to put 4 or 5 layers on something, if you've got 1 layer of shingles and to tear it all off, quite frankly, it's not that much of a cost savings. There are some circumstances, again, where it can help, and it does save a little bit of money. It saves the landfill for a while, but you're basically kicking the can down the road. Again, it's not always that significant. It's not like you're saving half the price of the roof. Still has to be, the roof shingles have to be put on, obviously, and all that. So in most cases, that's probably why we don't do many. We just don't recommend it. We want to inspect the deck, and the savings just aren't really that significant. Overview and final thoughts of this awesome video. Layover not always allowed. You need to check the code. If you have 2 or more layers, steer clear of that. A roofer can do a core sample. If it's a pitched roof, we can sometimes look under the drip edge, or along the gable and see how many layers are on there. Make sure it's checked out. It can be a good fit with a single layer, and then it can hurt long-term performance of the roofing system. That's all I have for you today. I hope you learned a little bit of something today, and that's it. Thank you for watching, Chicago.